next big idea is the idea of the, use a different marker so I'll be consistent, of the emotional triangle. Okay, so this describes the broader view of how systems interact. Differentiation describes how you personally have to manage yourself in that kind of system. The emotional triangle describes the structure of a system. One of the huge mistakes that people make, I think, as leaders of systems is to believe that hierarchy really matters that much. You know, you have your superintendent and your associate superintendents and your principals, and you go down here, and old style linear leaders believe that the boss passes out the rules, that trickles down, and the system functions, right? The thing is, you have this hierarchy on paper, but we all know it doesn't really work that way. In fact, systems work more like a series of interlocking triangles than they do a hierarchy. So a definition of an emotional triangle is this: when any two entities end up in conflict with each other, people, entities, whatever, when two people end up in conflict with each other, the tendency will be to draw in a third party or issue to stabilize the conflict. That makes sense to you? So, if you're a church-going person and you're really into Matthew 18, which is a passage that says if you got a problem with your brother, you send them off and they go work it out themselves, right? What we know is if Ashley, and tell me your name again. Katie. If Ashley and Katie have a problem, it is not normal for Ashley and Katie to sit down by themselves and sort it out. That's not how people generally work. Because the bottom line is they've already got a problem. They tried to work it out in all likelihood, and it didn't happen. So if Ashley and Katie have a problem, system says, what are Ashley and Katie going to do? According to emotional triangle theory. What are they going to do? They're going to go find somebody else to talk about their problem. Right? And it turns out to look something like this. So you got Ashley, you got Katie, there's a conflict, and goes on. So they have a conflict here. Ashley heads here. Maybe Katie heads here. You know, structurally that may happen. They both go to one, or more than likely, you know, Katie may go down here, but they're looking for somebody to talk to about it. Now, again, this sounds incredibly sexist, but it's not, because it's not a men and women thing. It's how people function. For example, I think people who tend to withdraw, we see the world in terms of rooms. And we enter a room, then we leave a room and do something else. So if I go to work and I work all day and I leave work, I shut the door to that room by my personality. It's not a good thing. And I go to my next room. Does anybody understand what I'm talking about? And I don't want to think about that other room. Now, this is not a male-female. This is how it works out. My wife is a river. And what happens to my wife is what happens all day long builds into this river. And then when we talk, she's got to share all the stuff that goes on, right? So we'll get in the car tonight. She's going to pick me up. And we're going to go eat wherever she tells me to. And I'll say, how was your day? And I will get this long narrative. This happened and this happened. I felt this about this. Then we'll get through and she'll say, what'd you do today? And I'll say, what? Work or nothing or whatever. And you'll go, you spent 8 hours there. How could nothing happen? When I say work or nothing, what am I saying? I don't want to engage it, right? The tendency with most people is, if there's a problem and she and I are invited, I will tend to go to somebody else who thinks like me and talk about how she doesn't engage me. And she'll go to somebody else and talk about how to engage me. That is what people do. Now, some of you get mad about it and you get frustrated about it. And even some schools make rules about you can't talk about this, that, or the other. Trying to manage that is trying to change the flow of water. People where you work is just like this. It is an interlocking series of triangle webs of relationships, right? And you can go on and on and on. That's the structure of systemically how you work. And if somebody gets in conflict over here, this person will tend to go over here to get somebody to help them out. You can't pass a rule and make people stop functioning like that. Churches have tried, schools have tried, businesses have tried. People will find their way around it because they will find somebody. And the reason they do it is not nefarious. They're not trying to cause a problem. They are destabilized. And so if Sam's destabilized, she comes to me. I describe it as emotionally throwing up. And Sam emotionally throws up on me. This happened, this happened. And she leaves. She feels better. But what am I doing? I'm cleaning off. That's great. Thank you very much, right? Here's one of the rules. The third-party entity who gets invited into one of these triangles of conflict or leadership is the most powerful side of that triangle. So if Ashley comes to me about Katie and she says, let me tell you about Katie, why? I have a tendency to think I'm victimized by that. Oh, no, I'm drug into their stuff. But Bowen says, no, you're the most powerful person there. Why? First of all, they're looking to somebody. Now, I'll be honest. If you came to me, Ashley, you're not looking for me to tell you Katie was right. You're looking for me to, right? But I have the power to influence somebody's direction. What else makes it the most powerful thing? I have the right to decide how much I want to engage that other person. And this is what I want you to know. All the time I hear this, well, I just got drugged into their conversation. Did you really? Because I just can't imagine they actually drug you there. Did they take you by the arm and pull you into that conversation? Or did they come to you and you didn't know how to graciously get out of it and you got sucked into it? And my response is, if you're well differentiated, you can decide how engaged with other people's junk you want to be. Is that making sense? So Ashley may come to me and she say, you know what Katie said to me? And I may say to Ashley, hey, you're great, Ashley. You're a really good friend, and I know Katie well. This is not something I choose to be involved with. Y'all may need to find another way to work that out. Does that mean, yes?
But I'm probably not going to come to you if I think that's a responsibility.
Exactly.
So.
Well, yeah, exactly. You're doing good. So if I choose not to engage, is she going to go, oh, you're so right. I'm sorry. I was out of line. I should work it out with Katie. No, what are you going to do? Oh, yeah, great. Number one, be mad at me, which if I'm differentiated, I don't care, right? Number two is you can go to somebody else because that's what systems do. So when you decide whether you engage or not, you're not deciding to engage so I can control Ashley. You're deciding what you want to do, what's good for you or me, right? Because who's the only person I control in this whole world? Me. That's the number one thing to remember. You don't have any power outside of yourself and the influence you can peddle to other people. So systems theory, the white knight who rides in on the horse and fixes everybody's problems doesn't exist in this world. System says, I don't have a right to insert myself in a conversation I wasn't invited into. Now that's an interesting concept in a school, isn't it? That I don't have a right to go into Sam and start telling, the reason I'm not picking on you is I don't know your name. What's your name? Okay. The reason I don't go in and start telling Judy what to do when I see Judy down the hall, because I have no authority and no, power to do that. Now, invited in doesn't mean just verbally invited in. It could be my position allows me to be invited in. I might be the principal. And Judy and Jennifer are having it out. As a principal, because I'm boss of both of them, I'm already invited in. Is that making sense? One of the real problems we have in our organizations today, and maybe schools, I don't know for sure, are people thinking that they have a right to have a conversation they hadn't been invited into. So the emotional triangle says this. This is how people, they doesn't do this, tracking down a flow chart. This is what your school looks like. All the teachers, all the students, the interrelations. And so you know that if A and K here are having a war, you get involved and upset them, they're going to go to somebody else and complain about you, and that stuff is going to spread around. That's not like, well, that's just the most dysfunctional place I've ever worked. That's just how it is. And I don't care if you're at IBM, I don't care if you're at Vanderbilt Medical Center, that's how organizations work. But here's the positive side. If one person can poison a whole system, another person can help a whole system be healthy. Is that making sense? That if you can learn how to be differentiated in your circle of influence, your maturity can also spread. Which is kind of exciting if you're into a very complicated, kind of messed up situation. You don't have to fix the whole place. You just got to fix your life and your circle of influence and watch that spread.